Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of our Laurel and Fig podcast. We are so excited for you to be here. My name is Nicole Streeter.
I'm Alesha Rodriguez, and we are co-owners of Laurel and Fig. And you're like, what's Laurel and Fig? Laurel and Fig originally started out as a company that was dedicated to postpartum and had boxes where we shipped out like all the things you might need after postpartum. Mm-hmm. The world is not quite ready for that. Mm-hmm. So we are pivoting, not leaving postpartum behind, but pivoting. Yep. Because we are still very passionate about it, but we also want to focus on motherhood and all areas of pregnancy and birth and kind of all the things that go into that as mothers and as, you know, birth givers, all of those things, and birth workers even. Yes. I think a lot of that kind of comes into play. And so for the podcast, our goal is to kind of focus on those things, bring more awareness of them, and hopefully over time, like the more we talk about postpartum and the more people get comfortable with it, we can start to shift focus back a little bit and continue to push that narrative forward so that people know that like postpartum is very real. I think a lot of people are sometimes confused on postpartum.
Yes, 100%. So a lot of people think that the word postpartum means postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, or other things like that. And really the word postpartum just really means that time that after you've added a new baby to your family.
Absolutely.
Whether that be pregnancy or surrogacy or adoption, you know, that is postpartum. That
adjustment period. Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
And so even like I'm 3 years out postpartum and I'm still postpartum, you know, I will always be now that I'm a mother. So a lot of people just don't really understand the word postpartum and what it means. And so we are here to talk a lot about postpartum, but we're also going to talk about pregnancy and motherhood in general too. So, but we really do want to focus more on the postpartum aspects. We're going to talk a lot about like postpartum mental health and things like that, and just trying to change that narrative that if you say, you know, I have postpartum depression, things like that, it doesn't mean postpartum, it means postpartum depression. Right. You know, it's very different.
Well, I think differentiating those two so that people around you are becoming aware, like the more we educate people and the people around you and, you know, those people, it trickles out. And so people understand more that like, hey, this postpartum period really deserves attention and this is what it actually means.
And it's not a stigma.
Right. There's nothing like postpartum is not inherently negative.
Yes.
It's literally just that adjustment period. And postpartum includes so many things, physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean,
so many things.
Your kids are included in that. Your husband is included in that. Your partner, whoever that may be. I mean, that's a huge adjustment period, and knowing how to successfully navigate that, I think is huge.
My dad is an example is when I started making these postpartum boxes, and I wanted to call them postpartum boxes. My dad the first thing he said was, "Are you sure you want to call it that? Because that kind of sounds negative." Because postpartum, he associates the word postpartum with postpartum depression, which shouldn't be negative, and that's something we'll talk about a lot.
That's the mental health stigma.
But to that older generation, they see it as a bad thing, and you shouldn't tell anyone, and you shouldn't talk about it. And so I was like, no, I'm not changing the name of this, because it is a postpartum box.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's the goal.
So I'm sticking with it. And it's my job and our job as birth workers and postpartum companies to make sure that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think the more you talk about it, the more you give a face to it, the more you inform people about it, the more you are empowered to make decisions that help you and your entire family and all the people around you succeed and make you supported through that.
Yeah. And talking about empowering, we're going to talk a lot about being empowered during pregnancy and birth. Huge thing. I mean, a lot of us don't know that you can fire your doctor if you don't like them.
Like, I don't like you anymore. I would like to switch. Or you can interview doctors, right? Like,
I interviewed midwives. Why wouldn't I interview a doctor? You do that? Right. I mean, I had no idea with my first child that I could do that. I had no idea that I could be like, you know what? I don't really like this nurse, and I'm going to ask for a new one. No idea.
Well, and I think once you, again, talking about like how that sets you up for success, like knowing you can advocate for yourself in like that OB period and your pregnancy period trickles into advocating for your children with their pediatrician.
Yes.
And advocating for yourself in, you know, with your therapist. If you don't like them, like get a new one. fun, but you don't know you can do that. And so if you can start that during pregnancy or like start that sooner, man, like it is a game changer.
It really is, because when you think about it, when you go into motherhood, you need to set boundaries.
Absolutely.
Sometimes with your family, and they aren't really going to understand it.
Yeah.
My family a lot of times would be like, well, we did this with you and you turned out fine. That's great. But that was also 20 some years ago. Okay.
30 some years ago.
Whatever. But, you know, it's okay to say, you know what, that's fine that worked for you, but it doesn't work for me, and I want to do something different. So setting those boundaries ahead of time during your pregnancy, in your birth, in your postpartum period is going to set you up for motherhood.
Well, and I think too, sharing that with the people around you.
Yes.
Right? So like the people who are in your corner, like your support team, and like no matter who that is, it's your partner, your family, your close friends, like if they've got your back, you've got that support, you know, they can help advocate for people too. So I can remember my mother-in-law asking me, you know, I think we were like maybe 3 months postpartum with my middle child, like, oh, when are you going to be done breastfeeding?
Oh, yeah.
And my husband was so quick to jump in and be like, oh, we're going for a year, hopefully more. Yeah. And like, it was so good to feel like he knew our goals as a family and to jump in and defend me.
Yes, so you didn't have to be the one to do it.
That's
absolutely huge. I mean, my father-in-law asked me a week after my son was born.
So I'm feeling really good about making it to 3 months.
When did the doctor say you could be done? And I was like, excuse me?
I'm pretty sure the doctor didn't birth this baby.
Spoiler, we went on to nurse for 22 months and he loved it. So it's not at all. It's just, you know, it's okay for them not to understand, but it is also okay for you to set those boundaries. And we're definitely going to do a podcast episode on boundaries, because that is just a huge game changer. Absolutely. Once you learn that you have a voice. And also with birth. Yeah, 100%. I was
thinking that same thing, that in birth, because we all know, like, if you've given birth, there's that period while you're in labor land that you don't remember anything. You can barely think enough to get through your contractions for that moment, much less advocate for the things you want for yourself and your baby. Yeah. And so if your husband knows, or your partner knows, or your mother-in-law, whomever is there, knows what your plan is, it's so much easier.
Yeah, they can be your voice, and letting them know ahead of time, like, hey, I want you to know what what I want out of this birth. If it's cord clamping delayed, or breast skin to skin right away, if I'm in the OR, or anytime, you know, letting your partner and anyone that's going to be there, whether that be a doula or a midwife or your doctor, anyone, just what you want to happen, because we all know that birth is never going to go to plan, even if you have a birth plan.
All the research you do, all the things you write down.
But that, you know, the birth plan isn't the whole thing about it. It's really the research and the education that you do and your partner does. That is why birth plans are a thing, because we just want you to like take a second and learn about these different things that might work for you.
Or might not work for you. Like if there's a standard of care, like for me personally, I didn't want the eye ointment that they often give. Yep. And I looked into it ahead of time.
Spoiler, that doesn't matter. We're not doctors.
No. I mean, do your own research.
Do your own research, please.
It wasn't right for me and my family.
It wasn't right for my
family. And so, you know, but I knew that ahead of time, so that I could say that when I got there, like, hey, we don't want this. And my husband was also able to be like, yep, we don't need this. Like, we're not doing it. Yep. And so when you have everybody on the same team, it's so much easier.
So much easier. And just to have that support and know that, like, if you can't talk right now because you're in a contraction and someone's asking questions, you know, they know exactly what you want. Yeah. And they can advocate for you. And that's really huge.
And I think it's especially important, too, if you end up going into an emergency C-section or something where you're out and you literally don't have a voice. Knowing that your partner, knowing that your people have your back, they know what you would have wanted is so important. And you don't ever know what's going to happen in birth. Like, it can change so quickly. And so if you know you've got that there, at least that may give you a bit of peace of mind.
And that knowledge and that education.
Huge.
Just learning about all the different things that can happen in a birth, because some births are picture perfect, exactly what you want. My second was that. Right. My first was not. And we're going to talk about our birth stories
next episode
in episode 2, so you're going to get a little bit sneak peek of what it's going to be. But my first birth was a hot mess. I literally had every single thing that happened, except for a C-section. I had all the things. And I thought I was knowledgeable because I loved being, I loved like babies. So I was like, I got this and I don't need to do anything. And I was so wrong because I had no idea. I I had no idea going
It's
into
like the things you don't know.
Right.
And there's so many of them.
There's so much. And my second birth, I was a birth worker already. We didn't talk about that, but I was a birth worker, so I had been around a lot of different births. And so that was a lot different. So real quick, we will talk about a little bit of our background. Yeah. So I am a birth and postpartum photographer here in Madison, Wisconsin. So I have seen over 62 births now in the last 5 years. Yes, including yours. So I've been to a lot of different births, and I also do a lot in postpartum. I do a lot of breastfeeding sessions, milk donor sessions, formula sessions.
All the sessions.
All the things. I want moms to feel empowered with their new bodies. And so we do a lot of different things. And that's kind of a lot of what Laurel and Fig is, too, really, is just teaching moms that, you're beautiful and you're perfect and you have a voice and
absolutely. And
things like that.
Again, that empowerment through knowledge and through support and all the things that kind of go into that. Do you think that part of the reason you're so passionate about postpartum is because you didn't have maybe all the support and stuff the first time around?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had great support in my husband and my family. I was the first one to have babies on both of our sides. And so they really tried, but I don't think they really understood postpartum and what all goes into it. And I just had such a mess, like healing after that. I had no idea that there was a postpartum doula. I would have totally had one.
Signed up for that.
Oh my gosh,
Which
yes.
reminds me, we do want to do a postpartum plan.
Yes.
So that it can kind of help in those situations. So postpartum plan, similar to a birth plan, except for the things that are on there are, hey, who's a postpartum doula in my area? Yeah. Who is a mental health professional that could help me through this? And
takes your insurance.
Yes.
Because when you're in this haze of postpartum, you have no idea what to do. And it's so overwhelming to have to research all this stuff. So it's literally going to be a worksheet that's blank, like fill in the blanks. What insurance do you have, and what mental health person can I get into right away?
Yeah.
Who can I talk to about birth trauma?
Who can I talk to about baby wearing?
Yeah.
Where's my milk bank in the area?
Yes.
Who are my Little HLE leaders and when are their meetings? I mean, all of those things. I can remember.
Lactation consultants. Yeah. Just literally all the things that are in your area. Doing that research ahead of time before you give birth is so important, because even if you never need it, let's say you never ever need it.
You never touch it.
You have it there and you know of those sources. So let's say you have a friend that needs it. Yep. You've got that.
Right. And you can just pull that out and be like, here's all the info.
Yes. So we are going to be working on that, and we will be putting that up for free. It'll be a free download.
Yep.
That everyone can download, and just please fill it out, because it's something I wish I would have done.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
With both kids.
Especially my first time, because I was the first person in my friend group who had a baby, and I didn't have mom friends to ask questions of, and I just didn't have the resources, and there was so much I didn't know.
So much
I would like to know.
Yes, I wish I would have known. I mean, even as a second time mom, there's things I wish I would have known.
Even as a third, fourth, fifth time mom, I'm sure there are things that are
and
still
there are
nice
things that you will go through in your second birth that you didn't go through in your first birth.
Right. I was a NICU mom, my third birth, and I had no idea how to approach that, because it was so different than my other children. And I'm sure going from hospital birth to home birth, huge change.
Yep. So I had a home birth with my second, which we are going to talk about our birth stories in the next couple episodes, so we will touch on that. But it was night and day difference.
Yeah.
And really with my second, after I had my second, I had really horrible postpartum anxiety, and I had no idea where to go for it. And so I wish I would have had
and there's definitely a stigma around it. So I think sometimes reaching out and asking for help is the hardest thing. So if it's already there, it takes that step out.
The hardest thing for me was finding a person to go to that took my insurance. That seemed so daunting to me that I put it off for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it wasn't until my husband saw me have a panic attack, and he did the work. He stayed up one night and found out which therapist was in my area, and he emailed me the number, and he's like,
just call.
I really want you to call this number. All you have to do is call. I know they already are covered. And that was mind-blowing to me, because all I had to do was call.
Right. Didn't have to think about it. Didn't have to figure it all out. It's just there.
It was just there. And I called and I made an appointment, and then I got the help that I needed. And if I would have had this form and could have filled that out, I would have had it months before and could have gotten help a lot sooner. So that's kind of a reason that we're doing this form, is to just provide moms with this knowledge that maybe they wouldn't have had before.
Absolutely.
So.
I'm Alesha again. And I have 3 children. I have had 3 different types of birth. I mean, my first was a little complicated. My middle was pretty normal. And then I had a NICU baby. And you have all the children in there. I'm avid baby wearer. I've done all the types of feeding. I've done formula feeding. I've done breastfeeding. I've done a combination of the both. I've done donor milk. Yep. So we've got a lot of different experience there. And I think just, learning like where my resources are and pulling my village in has been huge for me. And I know that when I was in the NICU, we didn't have any point of reference. We had no idea kind of what to expect. We didn't know others who had been through it. And so I wish I would have had some sort of resource to look back at, something that could plug me in. Because it wasn't until probably 2-ish weeks in that I, felt comfortable enough to go to one of these support meetings that they had there. Because I think those first couple of weeks are so overwhelming. And then B, that I had other NICU moms like on Facebook and stuff reach out to me. But I think in that early stages, it would have been so nice to know kind of like what to expect. And everybody's stays are different. Everything's different for everybody. But still just to know like, hey, you're not alone. Yes. And even though you're sitting in this room by yourself with your baby and all these monitors, like others have been there. And I know, after the fact, like I realize that, I know that, but in like the throes of it, it was so isolating and lonely.
It's so lonely. I mean, motherhood in general is lonely.
Absolutely.
Even if you're surrounded by children that need you every second of the day and you can't even pee alone, like we see you because we are you. Mothers all over. It's amazing when you do grow a community of mothers because that you really do see that you're not alone. I'll never forget my first MOPS meeting I ever went to, which is like mothers of preschoolers. I went to this meeting and I had a new little baby and I looked around and I was like, I don't need this. Like, this is like weird mom group and maybe I should leave. And then their opener hit me so strong because the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, right? So they did this skit that was like, if you give a mom,
I think, isn't it a cup of coffee?
Yes. Like she sat down with her cup of coffee and a muffin and the kid ate her muffin and she saw a sock on the floor and she was like, oh, I need to go do laundry. And she goes and does laundry. And then she sees the floor is dirty and she's like, I need to mop the floor. So she mops the floor and she just keeps going and her coffee's cold. And I was like...
And she's reheated it 7 times and you're like, oh my God, that's my life.
I literally I was nodding to every single thing they said. But the thing that hit me was every mom in the room was nodding.
Yeah.
I have chills right now because it was so real though, because they were all such different moms from different age groups of kids to the way they parent, some stay-at-home moms, some working moms.
I mean, like these are women I probably would not connect with outside of this group.
I mean,
but because it just a game changer again.
It was amazing just to know that I wasn't alone. And that's kind of what we want to build.
And even the mom with the picture perfect hair and the perfect manicure and all those things. And if that's you, like, kudos. Yes. But like, that's not me. And so like to see her having those same strugglers, even though she looks like she's got it all together, you're like, oh, okay. Like we all struggle.
We all struggle and we're all in this together. And that's one thing we want to talk about with this podcast is just... we're all here for you. So we have so many different topics that we want to talk about.
We've already hit like 15 of them in this. But.
Yes. Some of the things that we plan on covering in our podcast, preparing for postpartum, which we've talked about a lot, NICU moms and your stay and what to do to help NICU moms.
As a friend, as a partner, as,
Yeah, like what you need from us kind of thing, which I wish I would have had being your best friend. Like I didn't know what to do.
And I didn't know what to ask for.
Right, exactly. So I think this will be really helpful for a lot of people because we all know someone who's been in the NICU.
Yeah, and it was when I had a friend who shortly after me ended up in the NICU, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put together a care package of things that I would have wanted. So there was like dry shampoo because like you're there all the time, you never shower.
Even when you're home.
Yeah, right. Like lip balm because the fans like blow on you all the time, the air conditioning, so your lips dry out. So just like little things that like I knew in the moment I would have appreciated, but like I mean, you don't know that if you've never had somebody in the NICU or if you haven't been in there.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to talk about a lot of those things. Postpartum doulas, bereavement doulas.
People don't even know those are a thing.
No one knows about them, and we would love to have them come and interview them and talk to them about the different services that they provide, different things that they do, milk banks, and how to donate, how to get donated milk, is it safe, all the things. We're going to do
so much information there.
Yes. And we might interview one of the midwives midwives that runs that too, who is my midwife. I love her.
Hey.
So we'll see that. We're also going to probably have dads come on at one time.
Because they matter too.
Yeah, especially because we have both went through mental health, different things in postpartum, and our partners were in that too with us. Right. Like every step of the way they were there. So we want to have different conversations with the dads on how to help their moms or not their moms, but their baby
partners.
mamas. We're also going to talk about our birth stories, which we're going to hit in a little bit. Baby wearing,
huge
meetings, how to baby wear, some websites that are helpful, boundaries.
Oh my gosh,
having a newborn with
parenting choices,
just everything, all the things, mental health. Both pregnancy and postpartum.
Because they can be different. I mean, you can have zero problems during pregnancy, and then postpartum is crazy. Or pregnancy can be crazy, and postpartum's like smooth sailing. Yep. It's different for everyone.
I mean, my birth with my second was like the most wonderful healing birth in the world, and I got postpartum anxiety, something fierce. So it doesn't matter what happens in your birth. I mean, there's a lot of trauma that can happen that can lead to things, but we just want to talk about those different mental health areas, and that's going to be a long podcast.
Yeah,
we got me too. To say. We'll talk about hyperemesis because I went through that with both my pregnancies, and I was puking the entire time. It's not fun.
No.
And just different things that you can go through. So I'm sure we'll cover like surrogacy and adoption and things like that too. Formula feeding, all those things.
All the things.
We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but we would also love to hear from you guys if you have anything that you want us to talk about.
Topics or questions. I mean, whatever that is. I mean, you can always find us on our socials. We have Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. We have a website. You can always email us. Yes. I mean, we would love to hear from you guys, whether, like I said, that's a topic idea or a question about something, or if you're like, hey, I would love to be interviewed, or you should interview this person.
Or if you'd like to be a sponsor for our podcast, we are going to have sponsors every show. So there's just so much to cover, and we're so excited to get started. So we will see you all for episode 2.
Awesome. Bye, guys.